Who are you? Thirsty?
Yeah, nothing like a little bit of salt water to quench the thirst. Welcome back to part 4 of LA Fishguys Tech Talk. Calcium reactor.
Part 5!
You're drawing a little water out of the tank,
Yeah.
so we can test it and see what our pH and our calcium levels are?
Yeah, well, not pH. We're testing alkalinity and calcium levels here. So we've got our Salifert test kit sitting on the other table here. And in case you're wondering, this tank here is plumbed into the big tank, so it's one big system. This happens to be my display refugium, but it shares the same water. This is where I try to grow part of the nuisance algae that I don't want growing in there. So anyhow, shares the same water. Go bring these vials of water in and we'll run some tests. Alright, so before we run the test, I might as well show you the pH inside of the reactor on my little graph here. This graph here basically represents today, and you can see right here, this line here, that's the pH inside of the reactor, and it's basically flat line. This is the pH over the last several days, and there's a little bit of change in there, largely because of our temperature change outside. It got really cold, and that impacted the tank water temperature. My tank temperature dropped, and in doing so the pH in the reactor came up a little bit. So basically for the last 24-48 hours it's pretty much been flatline around 6.87, which for all intents and purposes the media that I have in there is just fine.
And you're reading this stuff via the Apex system?
Correct. There is a probe inside of the calcium reactor that continually monitors the pH, and of course the Apex logs that information and provides me a nice little graph. So what I've done here is sectioned off basically from this morning to this afternoon, and what you see there's a very
We're looking
line.
at 1 or 2 lines of information.
Well, this basically represents the last several days there.
Several days measured where? In the reactor or out of the tank?
No, this is the pH in the reactor. If I look at the pH in the tank, that is someplace down
Okay.
there's my tank pH, and you can see there's a little swing from about 8.25 down to a little over 8.1. So I have a little bit of swing when the lights are out, the pH is lower. When the lights are on, the pH is higher, and there is a little bit of that in the reactor as well.
So this is the pH of the water inside the reactor.
Correct. And to me that's the most important thing, because if my alkalinity is too high or my calcium is too high, I would slow the rate of effluent inside the coming out of the reactor, or increase the pH level in the reactor. You could do either one or a combination of both.
And could you do that from this laptop?
No, I go out there and either, if I want to adjust the pH in the reactor, I
Manually?
manually go out there, adjust the knob on the carbon doser, the aquarium plant's carbon doser, which is the regulator on the CO2 tank, or increase the flow. If I increase the flow and not adjust the bubble count, then that would increase the pH inside of the reactor. If I decrease the flow in the reactor and don't touch the bubble count again, that would lower the pH in the reactor. Or if I increase the bubble count of CO2 going into the reactor subsequently, that would lower the pH in the reactor.
And could you ultimately hook up those 2 components to the Apex and then do that from here?
No.
Okay.
No. Actually, well, I take that back. If I wanted to control the flow of the water going through the reactor, I could do that. There is a 0 to 10 volt control interface for that pump. I would simply have to plug it into a variable speed port on the Apex and create some sort of a program to do that. But frankly, it's easier just to go out there and push a button and not have to
But
monkey
for
with the
those
Apex.
really high-tech
Control freaks,
control freaks?
Yeah, you can do it, but there really isn't a practical reason to do so. It's easier to push a button and see the RPM on the pump.
Okay.
So right now what we're going to do, I'm going to switch my screen over here to my test results. I have some graphs in here for my recent test results, and I'll kind of explain those. This is my alkalinity here for the last several days, and this basically, I can drag this over here, no, whatever, there we go. This is where we started. Before I set up the reactor, I had an alkalinity of 7.3 7.36. Actually, no.
Okay, so this is a big long time frame here.
This is a time frame basically from the beginning of March, and actually I take that back. My first test result, my first test result was in fact on February 28th, and my alkalinity was 7.36. So that was obviously fairly low. Then I did my dosing. I used soda ash and increased my alkalinity. And then I was sort of chasing numbers. My initial test after doing my initial dose brought it up to 10.2, a little bit higher than I was aiming for.
So forget, I have to ask, what graph are we looking at?
This is my alkalinity graph.
Alkalinity in the tank?
Yes, that's correct.
Not in the reactor, in the tank.
That's correct.
So it's the alkalinity of the tank, and that's being measured by some alkalinity probe?
No, it's being measured by my test kits here, and based on my results, I can input them.
Oh, so you're manually inputting this information?
That's correct.
So you're doing tests on a regular basis?
I've been doing tests on a somewhat regular basis.
Oh, good boy. Good boy. That's something I hate.
Yeah, it's something I hate too, but when you're setting up a reactor, these kind of things are important.
Okay. All right.
So initially, before I started my dose, I came in at 7.36. I dosed. My alkalinity was a little bit high. I bumped it up to 10.2, but those numbers kind of overshoot, and then things settle down after a day or two, which they did. They came in a day later at 8.7, which was still a little bit low. So I added a little bit more, and bam, of course, I overshot it a little bit, or at least it appeared that I overshot it. Of course, things started settling down a bit, but they were a little bit over the map. So I gave it a couple days, and when my numbers were still up, right around here, actually right around there, I shut my CO2 off going into the reactor so that I would let the tank come back down. It was really, if your alkalinity and calcium levels are really high, there's no point in running your calcium reactor. The idea is to get to a target number and then use the reactor to maintain it. Well, because I overshot it, I shut the reactor off, and I left it off for a week so that the numbers would come back down. So they came back down, and they wound up at around 8, which again was low, but at that point I turned on my pH going into the reactor, I turned on my CO2 in the reactor to lower the pH in the reactor and start dissolving media. And essentially I got it to where I wanted to be. As of April 3rd, I was running an alkalinity of 9. Now, bear in mind that I still may have to make adjustments, and those adjustments will be made according to the results today. If the results come out 9, which is my target number DKH, and my calcium level stays where I want it to, then I'm golden. Now we'll take a look at another graph here.
Well, let's do some testing here.
Well, let's talk about one more graph here anyway, since we're talking about graphs. This is calcium, and same deal. I started out low. I dosed some calcium stuff into the tank, and I wound up high. I wound up at around 500. About the time that I shut off the CO2 going into the reactor, my calcium levels dropped, and I got to a sweet spot of about 450, 440, which is where I wanted to be. So again, these tests are as of April 3rd. Today is April 9th, so that's 6 days ago. We're going to run a test, and that test will kind of tell us if I've got the right flow rate coming out of my calcium reactor. So the first test we're going to run right now will be calcium. This is a Salford test, so I'm going to run through this real quickly. I've already got my 2 milliliters of water in there, and I'm going to add a spoonful of this pretty purple powder. 8 drops. Now we swirl for 10 seconds.
Ooh, you like swirling, don't you?
Yep.
Ooh, it turned from blue to interesting pink.
Yeah. Does Jim like pink? No, just kidding, Jim. Alright. And the last solution that gets us to our results.
So you're going to do a little drop, drop, drop?
Drop, drop, swirl, or drop, swirl, drop, swirl. So we're shooting for around 450. Fortunately, Jim had me pause for a minute there, and hopefully I didn't screw this test up. I'll know from my results.
Had to feed the bulldog.
Feed the bulldog. In our case, it'd be Great Dane.
In my case, it's the cats. So I've done some tests in the past where somewhere I went wrong and I ended up using the whole damn vial, and it's like, what? It never changed colors. Looking close. Woo! Magic. One more drop, and let's see the color change. We went back to a really neat blue.
Alright, there is our blue.
So what did the needle say?
So what we have there is about 5, 6, 7. So let's see, 0.08, so 0.07, so we're right around, say 460.
Ooh. So is that higher or lower than last time?
It's slightly higher, but I'll also note that because I had a little pause there between adding reagents, I think I'm just fine. So we're going to log that in here as my calcium test here. Add a little thing there, calcium, and value is 460. All right.
Dump that real quick. Okay, was that an okay break for what's the next thing?
Next is alkalinity.
Geo's Reef, the fabricator of the world-famous geocalcium reactor line, has released a new dual-chamber reactor. The CR612X2 is designed for hobbyists concerned with low effluent pH. Georeactors utilize the bottom-up water flow method to capture free CO2 and draw it back into the circulation pump. This design consumes less gas in the reaction chamber and less gas in the effluent. Not sure which reactor is best for you? Geo provides several different models. Georeactors are fabricated in the USA. Check out geosreef.com today. Do you enjoy watching LA Fishguys? Do you feel like a fish guy when servicing your own aquarium? Would you like to feel like part of the LA Fishguy team? For a limited time, get your LA Fishguys t-shirts or embroidered polo shirts today. These 100% cotton Hanes beefy tees are $20, and the embroidered black polo t-shirts are 50% cotton and 50% polyester and are only $25. Visit myfishtank.com. Look for the LA Fishguys link and order your LA Fishguys shirts today before they sell out. Some sizes may be limited and may not be available. And be sure to visit the LA Fishguys website to see all 152 reinstated LA Fishguys episodes, including the original 35 shows. And always, keep moving forward. Hi there, my name's Jim Stein, and you know me as the LA Fish Guy. Well, I also wear a couple of other hats. One of them is the jellyfish tank called the Jelly Aquarium, and the third is myfishtank.com. I offer an entire line of acrylic aquariums ranging from rectangular to hexagon, flatback hex, as well as the custom curve front aquariums. There's also an entire line of stands and canopies ranging from MDF to pine to oak with a variety of different finishes available. And the website is even smart enough that you can calculate what the freight and crate charges to your location will be. That's myfishtank.com.
All right, so now it's time to test alkalinity. I also want to make a comment in hindsight. I rinsed this with fresh water, but I did not rinse this vial in salt water before I had put the water in here for the calcium test.
And what is it you're afraid that happened?
Well, we have very hard water here, which means there's a lot of calcium and other stuff in it, and as a result, that could have influenced my test results slightly. More importantly, I think it might have possibly shown a little bit more calcium in the water than there was, which would explain I tested at about 460. I feel pretty comfortable in that my calcium level is right around 450, which is where it was a handful of days back. So I'll run back and do another test later, but it might have influenced it slightly. So note to self and to you viewers, when you run these tests, of course, rinse them in fresh water, the vials first in fresh water, and then rinse them in tank water first. So before running your test with the tank water.
So now we're going to do
Alkalinity.
alkalinity.
Give her DKH test here. So we want to shake that a bit. We're going to add our 4 drops.
Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Ooh, color change?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh, pretty aqua blue.
Okay.
What you doing?
H. Same routine as the last test. Add our drops. We do not need to swirl this. Wait for this to change to an orange or pink,
Orange or pink?
whichever comes first. So last test we were at 9 DKH. So the hope is that we're in the same ballpark. If it comes out low, that'll likely mean that I need to increase the output of the reactor or lower the pH slightly in the reactor. Either one will pretty much accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, if you hold it over a white surface, it makes it easier to see. Ooh, there's a little color change.
Yep. We'll just see where that's at there.
How many drops was that?
I don't know, I didn't keep track, but
Oh, it's the amount that's left in the
alright, so there's our pink.
injector.
So we were at 3.4 roughly, 0.34. Ooh. Alkalinity is showing a wee bit on the high side, so we're at 10.2 now.
Is that higher than before?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit, but that's not surprising because
I vaguely remember years ago when we were starting SPS, we were pushing 15 and 16.
you know, I don't know, that's really, really high, and that's not really in the safe zone. So what this tells me is alkalinity value 10.2. What this tells me is, bring up my graph here, and I can kind of explain where we're at. So on or about the 28th of March is when I actually turned the, well actually it was the 30th of March there is about when I turned the CO2 back onto the reactor. And on or about the 3rd of April, I had an alkalinity of 9. So the calcium reactor actually at that point raised my level back up, and over the course of the last 6 days, it's brought it up from 9 to 10.2. So what that tells me now is that I need to slow the rate of effluent coming out of the reactor. It's adding more calcium and alkalinity than my tank is consuming, which is fine. This is part of, you know, keeping track, and the really ultimately demonstrates the importance of testing the tank. So, at this point, what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back outside and I'm going to decrease the flow coming out of the reactor. Well, that's also going to, if I don't adjust my pH, that's going to increase or rather it's going to decrease the pH in the reactor, which is going to increase the alkalinity and calcium of the effluent. So what we're going to do is twofold. I'm going to slow the rate of the flow coming through the reactor, and I'm also going to increase the interval between bubbles. So if I'm at 3 bubbles or 1 bubble every 3 seconds, I'm going to increase that ever so slightly.
To what?
Let's see here.
Increase it or decrease it?
I'm going to increase the time between bubbles.
So you said one every three bubbles every 1 second, or one bubble every 3 seconds?
One bubble every 3 seconds.
And you're going to change it to then say one bubble every 4 seconds.
Well, that would be about a 25% change.
You can do 3.5?
I can do 3.5 or whatever.
Ooh.
Yeah. So based on our results now, we've got to go outside and make a quick change to the reactor.
Let's go. Okay, so you're going to make an adjustment?
Yep, we're going to make a slight adjustment here. First thing we're going to do is decrease our flow. We're at 15 RPM right now. That is about 40 milliliters a minute of flow rate through the reactor.
So that's a peristaltic pump?
Yes, this is a peristaltic pump.
And you were talking some adjustments. What's the reference? How do you know that?
How do I know what?
You just mentioned a moment ago as you were at 1500 or 15 RPMs?
15 rotates per minute, and there's a calculation basically. It's based on the tubing size or the type of tubing that I'm using in this reactor, this particular tubing here. It says at this RPM it's equivalent to this milliliter per minute, or 1 RPM is equal to X. So at 17.4 RPM it is 50 milliliters a minute. We're at 15 RPM now. I'm going to drop this down to 13. And if you ask me why, I'm going to say I don't know. It just seems like an
arbitrary number.
It's an arbitrary number. It's obviously a lot lower than 15. I mean, not an awful lot. So I'm probably someplace around 35 milliliters a minute right now. And to make sure that my pH doesn't drop too far in there, I'm going to increase the duration between bubbles. I'm only going to increase it slightly. A little bit goes a long way. So we've now increased the duration between the bubbles, and what I'll do is this evening I'll log in and check the pH in the reactor, and if the pH is too low, I'll increase the seconds per bubble, or if the pH is too high, I will decrease the amount of seconds between bubbles. So in a nutshell,
what you just did was slow down your calcium reactor system to not be as capable as it was, because right now it's producing higher numbers than what you really want to be at.
Exactly. I mean, the numbers that I'm at are still safe, but at the end of the day, a little bit lower alkalinity is ultimately better, and there's no point in wasting media, no point in wasting CO2 if I don't need to. So slowed our flow down, and that's one of the beauties of something like this versus a regular feed pump, where I've got to go in there and adjust a little tiny thing on the output, the effluent line from the reactor. I can simply just vary the amount that my pump doses. So in a nutshell, that is the calcium reactor setup and implementation. More importantly, calcium reactor setup and implementation when using a peristaltic pump like these Cole Palmers. I obviously have a little follow-up to do on my tank, and again, a week from now I'll run some more tests, and based on those numbers, if I need to make an adjustment, I'll make an adjustment. The idea is to find the right amount of flow for the tank so that my alkalinity and calcium in the tank stay flatlined. And as my needs grow, or as my corals grow, I will increase the flow coming through the reactor. If God forbid those needs decrease, then of course I can slow things down. But the beauty is it's a push of a button when using something like this, and most importantly, a calcium reactor doesn't clog up, so things are very consistent.
Well, very cool.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. And so stay tuned to LA Fish Guys Aquarium Tech Talk Be lots of stuff to learn.
Oh boy, keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward, and thank you for watching.